I stand before you today embattled and beaten, the casualty of a judicial system I once trusted with blind faith. 6 years ago, I enjoyed a life similar to many of you passing me now. Like you, I too passed protests and sidewalk preachers with fleeting curiosity or bemusement. I would often categorically dismiss them as fanatics, easy to ignore and easier to dismiss. Now I live in the smoldering ash and ruins of a former life of peace and promise. A father alienated from his 4 children, deprived of any opportunity and right to share my life with them. A physician who lost a wonderful practice which lovingly served a large community. A pediatrician incarcerated for 6 months for my inability to sustain a $15,000 per month payment schedule. This was the combined sum of child support and alimony dictated by my divorce contract. My journey has beaten me to the deepest depths of my soul. It has brought me repeatedly to my breaking point. I have attempted to end my own life so I would no longer have to endure another minute of the pain I am forced to live in every waking moment. I once enjoyed a humble life serving others. I dedicated my life to a noble cause and profession. It has been stripped from me. Through a gross miscarriage of justice, my life has become just another divorce tale. I now live in a life of humiliation, innuendo, and gossip. Saddest of all, and as shocking as surreal as my personal journey has been, I have come to find that the stories like mine are all too common. I have entered an abyss and now pass each day entombed in the countless anonymous mass of matrimonial law and family law casualties. I ignored good advice and repeated warnings. I never believed any of this could happen to me. After all, I live in the greatest country in the world. Each day I'm grateful to be a citizen of a nation that grants us the rights and freedoms that many, sadly, often take for granted. Rights our military and veterans fought and died for. Blood shed for a great nation born from a constitution written for the people and by the people. The realization of dreams and efforts of our forefathers, men and women who envisioned a nation better than the ones they fled. How has it become that this great nation has matrimonial laws and a family court system that boldly defies all that we were taught and led to believe in? I began my journey with the faith of a child, the naive notion that in the end the truth will prevail, that civil rights guaranteed by our Constitution and its amendments would be upheld and provided to me. After 6 years of repeated defeats, tens of thousands of dollars of mostly borrowed money, and countless tears, I have learned that I was wrong. The system isn't about inalienable rights, justice, or fairness. It's a business, plain and simple. Family court was created with good intention but has morphed into an oppressive tyrant. It operates with absolute power, free of the checks and balances required by our government. A virtual Wild West, monopolized by fraternal society of lawyers. It is a branch of government exclusively comprised of lawyers which govern and police themselves. It is not a justice system. It is a legal system marred with ambiguous rules, wide interpretation, and rife with temptation and corruption. It is a $50 billion a year industry which enjoys the gross unregulated profits of the infamous monopolies of the turn of the 20th century. The only justice comes to the elite few that can afford it. The rest of us are just grist for the mill. There's a saying, love is grand, divorce is 100 grand. Disgusting and sad, disgusting and true. Each year, 4 million people get married, currently over 50% of which get divorced. Most of us never wed with the belief that we would end up divorced. For me, divorce was never an aspiration or a goal. It was an unfortunate outcome. What I have learned since my divorce still amazes me. The lessons are hard to grasp at first, not because they are too complex to understand, but because of the pure shock of what you find you are suddenly submersed in. It is just as difficult to describe experiences in family court as if I were given the task to describe the details of a 15-car gruesome pileup, mangled bodies and twisted vehicles which collided at high speed on the expressway in bad weather. I often tell people that if they described my own story to me, I would not believe it because it seems too far-fetched to be true. That is the horror of the system. The injustice is so profound that we refuse to believe it. We listen to the tales of the victims and question the claims they make. Worst of all, we have become jaded to the endless stream of stories and regard them with the same contempt we hold for reality TV shows. The problem with these are not just stories, they are lives. Does anyone ever stop and think about what many of the family court rulings really result in? Often there is collateral damage which extends far beyond the obvious. For example, in my case, I was incarcerated for 6 months for my inability to maintain a monumental monthly sum. For now, I will even ignore the fact that debtors' prisons were abolished in this country over 150 years ago. Yet family court can circumvent that and deny individuals their amendment rights. Rights which are protected even for murderers in criminal court. My 6-month jail sentence directly resulted in the loss of my solo pediatric practice. Despite incarceration and obvious loss of income, the judge awarded my ex-wife with a $180,000 settlement, a $9,000 per month in child support and alimony, plus over $4,000 per month in additional incidentals, which fall within the umbrella of maintenance in my divorce contract. At the term of my 6-month incarceration, the total stood at $250,000, plus 9% interest to the state. If I could pay that sum, the family court system would gain $25,000 in interest. The part that no one discusses is the cost of incarcerating an individual that, despite being unable to maintain a $15,000 per month alimony and child support, and was not a prior burden to other tax-paying citizens. In reality, the state paid out over $160,000 while I was incarcerated for 6 months, so that family court could gain $25,000 in interest. Hardly a good business plan for the state. Once I was incarcerated, the state now had to pay over $225 per day to house a physician who was never in trouble with the law. I was housed in a converted jail gymnasium amongst drug dealers, gang members, and bank robbers. 9 of my former employees required unemployment services. Some of them required Medicaid-funded health insurance. My own children went from private insurance to Medicaid, as well as other public assistance benefits. In the end, the state took a net loss of $135,000 over 6 months, so family court could potentially yield $25,000 in interest. Since my release from jail, I am still unemployed. I have the dubious distinction of being the only pediatrician I have ever heard of incarcerated by civil court for child support arrears. A technicality which only worsens an already worst-case unemployment scenario. What expectant mother is going to Google my name and bring her infant child to a pediatrician that did jail time? Wouldn't it have made more sense to allow me to continue work and minimize my arrears than to guarantee that I would fail any attempt to satisfy that sum once incarcerated? While in jail, I was incarcerated with several repeat DWI offenders, some of whom were 5-time repeat offenders, sentenced to wear ankle bracelets and tracking devices during their failed probations. Perhaps using this technology on deadbeat dads like myself, who paid out over $490,000 in a little over 4 years, instead of costing taxpayers over $160,000 in 6 months. Perhaps this would have been a more equitable option. My incarceration was yet a small sample of the myriad of misery that family court has to offer. Yet the loss of my practice, loss of my career, bankruptcy, and over $280,000 and counting in arrears is only the tip of the iceberg. Another sad fact is that I'm unemployed and broke. I still don't have the $2,500 to hire a bankruptcy lawyer, so I'm too broke to even file for bankruptcy now. While I was incarcerated, the IRS seized my overdrawn bank accounts. My children's home, formerly in modification, is now in foreclosure. I am denied any possibility of obtaining a passport since I was such a flight risk. I continue to face the looming threat of having my driver's license revoked by family court, as well as facing the threat of family court, which could also revoke my medical license, thus making it impossible for me to pay the accruing family court debt I already have. Never mind the $160,000 in school loans, $160,000 in private loans from patients and friends, friends, medical school loans, IRS debt, business liens, and marital debt that I'm still responsible for. All of this pales in comparison to the parental alienation from my own children. an injustice which family court denies in my case. Parental alienation is a form of child abuse, not recognized in family court. While matrimonial lawyers regard children as little bags of money, parents are pitted against each other by opposing counsel to squabble over child support and visitation. Thousands of dollars that could have gone to children for necessities and education now go to attorneys who file endless expensive motions, plus charging standard legal fees of $350 and up per hour. I know pediatric surgeons that operate on premature infants who weigh less than 1 pound, and they don't make nearly as much money. How does a divorce lawyer earn more than a surgeon who saves lives? Matrimonial lawyers thrive in an adversarial system which profits from the pain of failed marriages and broken families. While the family court cash cow flourishes, litigating parents hemorrhage legal fees that go towards the attorney's children's college educations and not to the aid of their own children. Each day, family courts nationwide make inconsistent and incomprehensible rulings, not only on monetary judgments, but worst of all, on the restriction of some individuals' parenting time. I'm not sure which is worse, a judge that decides one parent can only see his or her child 3 hours per month, or the parent that asks for and exercises such a ruling. Unless an individual is a threat to a child, what parent should be deprived of their right to spend time with their child? Should parenting time and opportunities come with a price tag? Would I be a better father if I was able to pay $15,000 per month? Would I be an even better father if I could pay more? Over the past 6 years, I have learned that a father will lose in each and every scenario. If a father focuses more on his earning than his children, he is an absentee dad who passes up golden opportunities and memories with his growing children. Time he will never get back. If a divorced dad tries to get more time with his children, the immediate assumption is that it's only because he wants to pay less child support. What about the father that really loves and misses his children? Does family court have a calculation for the value of missed parenting time? They seem to have many other inexplicable calculations. The very court, conceived in all best intentions, has failed the public trust. It is a powerful monopoly infested with temptation, greed, and corruption. It is a society of lawyers which govern themselves and answer to no one. It is mired in bureaucracy and rife with inefficiency. From every angle and every conceivable category, it fails miserably. It is a calamity so great that within its midst, any noble soul with the best of intentions would not know where to start. It is a $50 billion per year Goliath that no one dares challenge. 6 years ago, I never thought twice about this issue. It would never happen to me. And then I suddenly found myself in one of the 6 out of 10 marriages that failed. Then I was warned that divorce brings out the absolute worst in everyone. I failed to heed that warning also. The person I was with half of my life and married to for 15 years would never initiate and engage in such a vindictive battle. Surely I would know this better than my advisors. I made a fatal error. I never saw that person again after we separated. The pain and suffering of divorce was exponentially magnified once lawyers became involved. There are no winners in the arena where the battles take place. The winners are the lawyers. Untarnished and protected on the outside of the ropes, the hardest hit victims are the children, pawns in a cruel game of chess that ends in indescribable suffering. It has been said that only 2 things bring about change in our society. One is money, the other is protest in large numbers. I hope that in sharing my story with you, after all of the humiliation and my continued pain, I may prevent one of you from suffering a similar fate. God willing, that person will protect another, and so on and so forth. We can pay it forward. I beg that people investigate the critiques I claim. I pray that we stop accepting these stories as entertainment and stop to think of the lives that are affected. I hope that the voices and the cries of all of the family court casualties and victims will be heard and that one day a unified movement will form and march in solidarity for a change for fairness and for justice. That one day our children could believe in our court system like I once did. May one day they believe that truth will prevail and they will not be disappointed or wrong. Thank you.